Can I read you a little bit?
Yeah,
So I
please.
have my letter here.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. All right. This is this is interesting. Everybody, so we are here today with Leslie Farrell, who is a previous client of ours, who recently landed an agent for her first book. So we're going to talk a little bit about Leslie and about the book itself and about the process of finding an agent for it, and see if you guys can gain some insights or some interesting tips and tricks from that as well. Leslie, you want to kind of introduce yourself? Where are you? Who are you? Your
Sure,
background? Yeah, yeah.
sure. My name's Leslie, obviously. I was a documentary filmmaker for many, many years, and eventually went on to more commercial television. So I've always been a storyteller. That's the point of that.
Right.
And I've written a lot of teleplays and things for films and consulted on scripts and things. But I'd never written a novel.
Yeah.
And I had wanted to do that. I mean, since I was a kid, I've always loved to write and tell stories and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I started writing this book years ago. But because I was working and I had a really creative job, it was hard, to spend 8 hours a day being creative and helping other people's vision come to
Yeah.
life, and
Yeah.
then go home and keep my story going. So it
Yeah.
was really off and on, off and on.
Mhm.
And so I moved from New York City to Reno, Nevada, for family reasons, but
Mhm.
decided, like, this is the time. This is the time to
Mhm.
do it. It's quiet. I'm not working full time. I was still working. I'm still a producer, but only sort of doing small projects that I want to do, and
Right.
really turning my attention to becoming an author.
Mhm.
And I ran across first book coaching
Mhm.
on Facebook. It just popped up, probably because part of other writing groups or who knows
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a really interesting, smart um, group and system, excuse me, to maybe help me. Because I was at that point, I'd written sort of the first three quarters of the book,
Yeah.
very rough, mind you, with tons of notes. Not when I say written, I mean that loosely,
Sure.
and had just outlined the end.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of how, when we met, when I came to you,
Yeah.
that's sort of where I was with the story.
Okay.
So it needed a lot of work.
Yeah. 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 And you want to give people a sense of what kind of things did we work on together? What sort of problems did we have to solve? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, well, I went through the entire curriculum. You had me stop writing, which I think was really smart. At the time, I thought, I want to keep going. Um, but you said stop, and then I went through the whole curriculum with you, and
Yeah.
so we really worked on everything together. I mean, the story itself,
Mhm.
in terms of the events that happened, all remain the same, although some things ended up moving around. Really, where you and Anna helped me tremendously, and quite frankly, I can't really honestly thank you enough, because this story would not be the story without your mentorship.
Mm.
It's all the underlying, all the texture, all the motivation.
Mm.
Um, I mean, my characters are so well rounded. Part of the story that I know we'll get to, but I had my script, I keep calling it script. Sorry, TV
Yeah.
words will pop in. Just correct me.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
Um, I had my manuscript after we were done, and I
Yeah.
thought it was done. And this is also part of my story that I'll go into more later. I had it
Yeah.
evaluated by a professional,
Right.
uh, and one of the key things they said was how well-rounded my characters were. And
Okay.
that is first book. That is 100% your mentorship, Anna's mentorship. Um,
Right.
and so even though I might have had like the structure, the all the key events, it was all the texture and bringing the characters to life and figuring out, why this person is motivated to do the things that they do.
Right.
Um, all of that's first book. So it's
Okay. Yes.
yeah.
I think often with drafts, like you taste it, right? And you're like, it's missing something. It
Exactly.
needs a little something, you know what I mean? And it can be different things for different people. Like sometimes, yes, the characters need to be a little more well-rounded. Sometimes it's like there's not enough of a theme or a message coming through.
Yeah.
There's always like something to work on, right? And I do remember that you came with a really good concept already and
Mhm.
kind of like a skeleton of the story that you wanted to
Yeah.
tell. And I think, yeah, absolutely, kind of like
Yeah.
working on adding the texture and more substance and more depth to it.
I
Uh,
didn't even really understand. I've got to tell you this, and I think I said this on my old podcast. I
right.
didn't really understand who the story was about. When I brought it to you, I thought it was about Letty, my main character, the almost 15-year-old, because it's a young adult novel, the
Yeah.
almost 15-year-old against Mabel May, the school bully, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, that wasn't who the story was about. The
Right.
story's about Letty versus her mother and her
Yeah.
mother's desires and intentions about Letty's life. It's completely different in a way, even though the events remain the same,
Yeah. Yeah. The
you know?
emphasis is different. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
okay.
So it's complete. Yeah. So, I mean, the soul of the book is
Yeah.
completely different. And once through working through your exercises and things that I came to understand that,
Mm-hmm.
then the story was there, right?
This fell
But
into
I was
place.
going at it the wrong way. When we finished together,
Yeah.
uh, well, obviously we had gone through the book. We felt it was in really good shape.
Yeah.
Um, you helped me with the query letter and with the synopsis. And also, you had turned me on to Victoria, who helped me with just other things I would need to put together that agents would ask for.
Yeah.
So I had all my, elements or at the time. Okay, so then what I started with was Query Tracker
Yes.
because I'd heard about it and I thought, well, that makes sense. It's a database. So I
Yeah.
went through and did my research, first culling out, putting in all of my specifics, finding, getting to agents that seem to want that, and then going and researching every single agent
Yeah.
singularly, what was their agency about? What were they about? What kind of books did they get published and things like that, and figured out about I targeted I think about 70 agents that seemed
Yeah.
like really good possibilities, American agents, and that's important for, and I'll tell you in a moment.
Yeah.
And so I started the query process that way, and I sort of made a schedule where in the afternoon, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of busy work. Because what I learned very quickly is thank goodness I had all those elements ready. But
Right.
then in terms of submission of writing sample, they all want something different. I
Different things.
must
Yeah.
have 900 different iterations of,
Right.
which first three chapters, first 10 pages, blah, 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 all that stuff. So, and so and to try to target, I tried to put one line in each query letter that was very specific to that agent. So to personalize it in some way.
That's a good tip, by the way, for anybody that does want to take something away from this, to make sure that you're not sending the exact identical thing as a cover letter to everybody you send to, because you want to give the agent the feeling that you intentionally chose to send to them, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did that, and I query, and I did diligently 4 days a week, every afternoon, because I could only do two a day. It was because it's a lot of work.
Right.
I sent them out, and slowly the rejections began to trickle in,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and but and they kept coming, and I was expecting that because come on.
Yeah.
Um, but what was disheartening, and I became disheartened, I'll tell you, what was disheartening to me is that, and I don't think it's just Query Tracker, but I think Query Tracker sort of exacerbates this feeling a little bit, is that I just got the form rejection. Like
Yeah.
no one was giving me any notes. And in Query Tracker, you can go in and you can look at, there's like a message board for each agent. So
Yeah.
you can look and see if people post, you know, their rejection. So one thing is I was able to at least see I'm getting the same rejection letter that other people are getting. So that made me feel better
Good.
ish. But then you see that some people are posting and the agent wrote, oh, this, that, something personal to them. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, So I started, my confidence really started to crumble a little bit. And I thought, well, maybe my book isn't ready. Like,
Right.
is that it? Or, because I just, boom, book, everything was a rejection. Trying to tell myself, look, some people get 100 rejections. I've sent out 30 to 35.
Right. Right.
Then finally, And so I decided to kind of just stop for a moment, right?
Okay.
And just say, okay. Um, and then I got a rejection with a very nice note from an agent that said that she really tried to fit it into her, slate, but that she already had something similar, but she invited me back to query her again with a new project.
Okay. Okay.
So I immediately called a friend of mine who's a publisher, who's a retired publisher in England, by the way,
Okay.
um, and said, "Okay, this is the rejection letter I got. What do you think it means?" And she said, "That's great because agents and publishers don't have time to invite you back if they don't mean it." So
Sure.
she never would have written it. And I
Yeah.
thought, okay, well, that's encouraging. But then I thought, well, what else could be? Is there something off? So anyway, I subscribed to Writer's Digest, excuse me, and in there was a notification about the Book Life Prize, but you could submit an unpublished manuscript for review. Can I read you a little bit?
Yeah.
So I
Please.
have my letter here.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. All right. This is interesting.
This is where first book is written all over it. Okay.
Right.
Character slash execution. Letty is a wonderfully complex young woman determined to rise above her family's plans. So then they score you.
Okay.
Plot slash idea 8, out of 10.
Nice.
Originality not yeah. Originality 9. Prose 8. Character slash execution 9.
Wow.
Overall 8.5.
Wow. Hi. That's good.
Yeah, and I was like, wow. See, and this, I have to get back to it. It's because this is what we were talking about earlier. It's the work that we did together to really figure out my characters, to round them out, to give them quirks and motivation, all that stuff. That's all in
Well,
there. I wouldn't have gotten that without first book. There's no doubt. I mean that really sincerely because I was not there. I
yeah.
was not there. All of that, that's what I meant by the underpinnings, the real story. And here's someone who knows nothing about me and nothing about the book, who's a professional,
Yeah.
who read the book, cold. And they got all of that out of there. And I think that, um, that was it. So let me,
So then what
so
happened?
getting an agent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this energized me again. But then I thought, okay, I didn't want to go back to what I was doing. And because I've been reading a lot in between about other strategies potentially for getting an agent. And I thought at one point, because getting back to my friend that wrote Swift River, um, she actually got an agent in London who
Right.
had relationships with American publishers. I mean, it's been released in England. It was released there first because that's where it was published first. But then, and I thought, well, maybe that's an idea.
Right.
Maybe I need to go and get a perspective from someone else, from another country, and they might see something fresh in my book, and that maybe that's a way. So I got the writer's market, and looked up and started researching things, and then again read an article and said, well, Writer's Digest also highlights new, and new doesn't necessarily mean young or inexperienced, but new agents.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's interesting too. To query someone who hasn't been an agent that long, who's trying to build their roster.
Yes.
And so I thought, oh, I'm going to try that. But that was what I did. But what I also did was I took one line or I took two lines, sentences out of this evaluation
Hmm.
and put a quote in my query letter, right?
Nice.
That
Yeah.
talks about the um, the roundness of the characters and all that. I put that in there, and of course attributed it to them,
Yeah.
and I started getting feedback.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yes.
There's a few, there's a couple of things I want to call out for people that'll be watching this so that they have some takeaways, right? One thing is what Leslie was saying earlier about the nature of the response that you're getting from agents, telling you something about how well you're doing with the querying. If you're getting template after template after template, and it's been 100 submissions and not a single personalized form of feedback, that is something of a concern. I think for you, it felt like, okay, I must be on the right track when you had somebody leave you more of a personalized note, because it's exactly what your friend said, which is that they won't take the time to do anything personalized unless they see something in the manuscript.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get a feel for whether you're getting warmer or colder based on those responses that you're getting. Another thing I want to call out is perseverance. You've got a great deal of that, and you need a great deal of that, right? Because it is a numbers game to some extent.
It
It is
is.
a numbers game, and you're gonna hear no an awful lot, and that can be pretty crushing, to be honest. There's a lot of your journey that echoes Victoria's journey, who's the other client of ours that got an agent, and very similar thing for her, an awful lot of no, and it was very painful before she managed to hear yes, right?
Mhm.
But I think the last thing I want to call out is that you added some what we could call like uh social proof in some ways
Mhm. Yeah.
to your query letter, and we actually encourage people to mention that they worked with us.
Mhm.
Not because we're a famous name or anything like that, but because if you can say, yes, I've had developmental help with this, I've had
Right.
professional work on this with me, the agent, even without looking at the manuscript, has some indicator that it's probably at a higher standard, right? And for you to
Right.
say, I've been coached, I've had developmental work done on this, I've also had a professional evaluation, and here is what it said. There's a massive amount of uh not authority, but maybe social proof is the right word, right? You have indicators from other experienced
Yeah.
people that this is a manuscript worth looking at. And that's a that's a very good helpful tip.
Yeah.
So what happened after
I,
that?
I
Yeah.
so okay. So then so I got two agents asked for more for the first time, and I was like over the moon. So I sent in, excuse me, the manuscripts, and Deirdre from Embolden Media got back to me. I think I sent it out on Thursday and Monday morning.
Yeah.
She was in my email box,
Yeah.
wanting to have a chat. So then, of course, I freaked out initially and Googled what happens once an agent contacts you? How should it go?
Right, right.
And of
Yeah.
course, there are people talking about it online.
Yeah.
um, and so just I wanted to be prepared because I didn't really know what to do. And so we met, we zoomed and met, and she just really understood my book. She loves it. We had a great connection. She is mature.
Mhm.
She herself is a two-time author and has been an editor and been in the business, but hasn't been an agent. So she was a new agent, but not new to the industry.
Yes.
And I really like that. And we just connected. And so much about what will work is that connection with you and your
Yeah.
agent, from what I've heard and read, that's key. And so it went very quickly once I got someone to really look at the manuscript.
Right.
Just to reiterate what you said, I think it was I've been coached, and then here's another group saying this is worth reading. Because I had never written in this, a novel before, and never written. I've never, submitted to a writing contest. I have nothing really to show in this area,
Yeah.
and I think that just having documentary and unscripted reality show experience is not, it
Direct
wasn't really a
response.
platform for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those things, I think, what tipped me over to get them to just pay attention to it. You
Really,
know.
really interesting. So now there's going to be a whole journey ahead of you of finding a home for the book itself, right? Like
Yes.
finding a publishing deal, and that can take a
Yeah.
while as well. But
Yeah.
just to kind of, I guess, land the conversation, uh, is there a particular lesson or a few insights that you could share that you took away from this whole journey, the work that we did together, the
Yeah.
the, the whole querying journey, the stuff that you've done now with the agent? Are y- Is there anything you're going to do differently with your next book, or anything that you would want to share with someone who's like they're behind you in
Yeah.
that journey, they're catching up with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's several things. One of the biggest things, though, is
Yeah.
really doing your foundational work before you start writing. I Now I totally get it because I didn't start that way. Like I said, it started with a short story, which was already written. And then I started in the middle. I think I left that out with this big event that happened. And
Yeah.
so it just kind of was, writing here, writing there, not really understanding my characters to know what they wanted and needed, which would have informed what they needed to do.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's the biggest thing and I am working on my next book right now, or just starting to do some research. Can't say I'm not writing anything yet, but
All right.
I'm thinking in those ways now that I learned from you,
Right.
rather than just, oh, let me plot something out and go at it.
Yeah.
Because it was painful to have to, kind of get back and
Go back and reassess
because,
everything.
oh gosh, yeah, it was hard. But
Yeah.
obviously that's what paid off. That's the biggest thing in that regard. In terms of querying, absolutely all the work that we did at the end with the synopsis, all that stuff, making sure that you do all of that, and the beta readers and all this, and evaluating what the beta readers were saying for that final edit push. All of that was really great to prepare you. And but I also think, for me at least, this is how so far, and like you said, it's a next step of the journey. We still have a journey. We haven't sold the book yet, but thinking outside of the box on how to get an agent, I think, is also really important. That I've learned that it's not just going to the big agencies and getting rejected. Try smaller agencies. Try
Yeah.
like I did the newer people. You know,
Yeah.
um, there are many ways to find the person who's going to champion your book, because
Yeah.
that's what you need. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Deirdre loves my book as much as I love my book. We've talked about it extensively. She gets it. Um, we've prepared a whole other level of sort of pitch package that she's going to then take out starting next month. We didn't want to get stuck in the holidays.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. Seriously, I'm stoked. I'm really excited.
Well, I'm really stoked. I mean, congratulations. Yeah,
Thank
it's
you. Thank you.
for us, like having met you, from the point where we first interacted and how far you've now come and what you're now doing. Like, we're very excited about the whole thing. So
Thank you.
you'll be hearing from us. We definitely want to keep
Yes, and I will keep you posted better than I did last time.
Please do, please do.